Hey guys, it's Beth. Welcome back to my channel. Today I get to share with you the November 2020 Flavor of the Month card kit by Scrapping for Less called Simply Sentimental. Making 4 cards today, and for my first card I am using the Family Ties collection, which is collection number 3, and I'm using one of the sketches from the download sheet from the website, and it's the My Favorite Things sketch number 216. And you can find the sketch sheet on the downloads, under the downloads link on the Scrapping for Less website. So I ended up cutting my strips here down to about 2.5 inches by 5 3/8. And then the sketch actually shows like a wave separation pattern, and I don't have a die that cuts like any kind of like wave type border, and so I just pulled out pencil and scissors and kind of freehanded my own. Normally when I do that it can come out wonky, but I got lucky this time. It actually came out pretty smooth. And I'm using a black card base on this one that's A2, so it's 5.5 by 4 1/4. And then I'm pulling out one of the sentiments from the stamp set, and I'm using the one that says "Friends are the family we choose." And I do stamp it a few times here just to make sure that it inks up, and stamps really well since it's a brand new stamp. And then I pull out a 1 3/4 inch circle punch to punch out my sentiment there. And I'm also going to go ahead and stamp the Missing You sentiment as well. And then I pull out a piece of black cardstock to punch a 2-inch scallop circle just to go behind my sentiment there. So I can get all of this layered up. And before I forget, if you enjoy this kit, the viewing of this kit, be sure to check out the Scrapping for Less website sooner rather than later, because they don't have a ton of these available. So if you aren't already subscribed, you might jump in and purchase one before they're gone. So here I'm just adding my sentiment kind of at the top wave or the top curve of the little wave that I had cut. And then the there were some pink sequins in the kit, and so I was trying to decide if I wanted to use those and decided to come back to it in a bit. But I'm going to go ahead and trim down the Missing You sentiment that I had stamped earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and add it to the outside of the card. I debated about putting it inside, but wanted to add a little bit more to the outside of the card. I know the patterns are busy, but there's still not a whole lot going on the front. So once I put that down, I pulled the sequins out again, and I really liked those little pink hearts. And the Missing You, the sentiment, the curves, the tails on the G and the Y kind of created some white space at the bottom of that little sentiment strip, and so I thought that was the perfect place that I could add those little hearts. So then I'm kind of emphasizing the Missing You part of, and I know exactly who I'm sending this card to. So it's kind of fun when you make a card and you already know who the recipient is. You already have that in mind. So anyway, I also wanted to add something to the top of the card to help weight it down just a little bit, and there were some bigger sequins in the mix, and so I was trying to find those and pull out a couple of them, and then was trying to figure out where I wanted to add them, and finally settled on going right there around my circle sentiment piece. And because I am using a black card base, I'm pulling in some thin white paper to add to the inside of my card, and I did cut it to 4 inches by 5 1/4, and that just allows space for me to write a message that you can actually see. And then I'm going to pull in a scrap piece of one of the panels that I had cut down and just add an angle to it, and then add it to the inside of my card as well. And that is for card number 1. For card number 2, I'm actually going to be using the Scrapping for Less Flavor of the Month card kit, and I'm using collection number 1, which is called Puppy Paws. How cute is that little puppy stamp, that dog stamp? I decided to go ahead and stamp it directly onto that brown pattern paper, and I did stamp that earlier just because I wanted to make sure it had time to dry since I was stamping directly onto the pattern paper, which has a little bit of a gloss. Here I'm using a white card base this time. And I did go ahead and die cut my dog into an oval shape. And I finally decided to go with the little circle icons for my card mat. And it is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 because I decided to go ahead and cover the whole card since that background on the pattern is off-white and my card base was white. And so then I went with the blue background with the white bones for that strip, and that ended up being 1 3/4 by 4 1/4. I also decided to use the sentiment, one of the sentiments on the stamp set. It says, just stay positive. Super cute sentiment. And I went ahead and die cut that into a little rounded rectangle stitched piece. And then I'm going to go ahead and I try to adhere the card mat to the card base, got a little off, had to pull it back up. So I added just a little bit more adhesive just to make sure it was going to stick. Then adding that blue strip down, and then we'll get to layer that cute little dog on top. I think it looks like a kind of a chocolate lab now on that dark brown paper. Kind of want to name him Hershey. So I decide, instead of this, the sketch actually calls for a sentiment in the lower left. I ended up adding mine into the kind of upper left, right off the top left corner or top left part of my oval there. And then decided to pull out the twine that was in this collection and tied a little bow. And I'm going to add that to the top of my little sentiment rectangle and let that dry. And then I pulled out the sequin mix that came with this collection and just pulled out the blue ones, a few of the blue ones, because I wanted to pull in some more of that blue to balance out the strip that I used. So I just put 3 of them underneath the little dog there. And just used art glitter glue to adhere those down. And then we'll also end up adding another scrap onto the inside of this card. And if you guys came here from my blog, please be sure to hop on to the next participant in this blog hop, and that is Kim. And she will be linked in the description box below. For my third card, I'm using that second card on the second sketch on the sketch sheet, and there's no specific name or number. It just says by Alyssa on felt magnet, and it looks like it's designed to be a square card, so I did adapt mine to be an A2 size card. And I'm using the Wildflowers collection, which is collection number 4, and then a craft card base, which the craft card stock also came in this month's kit. So adapting that sketch to an A2, in case this is something you want to do as well, I cut my card mat down to be 4 by 5 1/4, and then that butterfly rectangle piece was 3 by 4 1/2. And then I'm using the stamp that came in this collection, and it says, "You belong among the wildflowers." Which I think is kind of funny. Well, I guess I did eventually pull in. Well, no. I ended up using that sentiment and never really had any flowers on my card. But it's fun. But the butterflies were like just gorgeous. I love the combination of the peaches and the mints in this collection. So I love the ephemera too that came with this collection, and I wanted to create a little grouping with it. But right now I am trimming down that peach pattern, and ended up making that 3/4 of an inch by, or I made it 1 inch by 5 1/4. And then I'm trying to figure out how I want to group the ephemera down there at the bottom left. And I also wanted to pull in one of the sentiments, the congratulations sentiment, and was trying to make that work, and kind of finally gave up and just moved the sentiment off a little bit. And I also ended up using my rounded corner, the rounded rectangle stitched die again to die cut my "You Belong Among the Wildflowers" sentiment. Was hoping that would kind of help with my little ephemera grouping, but it didn't help with that. But I do like the look of the rounded better than when I had it square. So I decided to go ahead and add a little bit of scrap of white cardstock behind the right side of the "You Belong Among the Wildflowers" piece, just to kind of help level it out a little bit, since there's a good portion of it that's not, or that's hanging off that peach strip. And then kind of played with the ephemera again, debated about pulling in that circle butterfly and decided against it. Ended up going with just the 2 little pieces of ephemera there at the bottom left, and pulling that congratulations sentiment down to the bottom right of the card itself. And so I'm putting teeny pieces of that scrap cardstock again behind the or underneath the butterflies, just because there's several different layers going on there, and like one of the butterflies is hanging off the peach, and because it's also sitting on top of the white, I just wanted to make sure that the butterflies didn't look too wonky, that they were too unlevel. So that's why I added those little pieces. And then go with my congratulations sentiment that I also really wanted to use down there at the bottom right. And wanted to pull in, I hadn't used any enamel dots yet, and I'm not sure if they came with this collection, but the mint blue ones went perfect. And so I just decided to scatter those around the front of the card, and then I'm adding a strip on the inside to finish it off. For card number 4, I'm using the Thanks So Much collection, which is collection number 2, and I'm using the Paper Play Sketches 005 from the sketch sheet, and another craft card base. This is another like beautiful collection. And so I kind of pulled in that subtle swirl floral pattern to be my card mat, and it is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. And then I cut a 1 3/4 inch strip of that pink pattern, and just kind of freehanded a little off-centered reverse fishtail to match the sketch. Pulled out the "Thank You for Being You" sentiment from the stamp set. And again, kind of went off to the side there to stamp it off, just to make sure it was going to stamp well for me. And I'm going to trim this down and then pull in a little bit of that blue pattern to go behind my sentiment, just because it's kind of a very light background and I didn't want the sentiment to get lost there. And be sure that after you have gone through all of the participants in the blog hop today, please make sure to circle back to the Scrapping for Less blog so that you can enter the Rafflecopter drawing that they do every month. And also don't forget the Scrapping for Less sale going on right now. They have like 40% off of all paper, and most other products are on sale as well for their going out of business sale. So please be sure to check that out. And I decided to go ahead and assemble my card mat panel before I adhered it to the card, just in case I needed to trim off any of that pink if it was overhanging, but worked out and I didn't have to do that. So now I can go ahead and adhere that panel to my card base, and am going to use those mint blue enamel dots again, and the sketch calls for 3, and I didn't have 3 of the same size, so I just decided to use 1 of each size there at the top right. And then on the inside, I'm going to add another little strip scrap to kind of decorate the inside of the card a bit. But here again are my 4 cards for you. Thank you guys so much for checking out my cards today. Hope you enjoyed this kit and a bit of inspiration. Again, be sure to check out Kim, who is linked below, and you can find the sketches linked in the blog post linked below as well. Thanks so much for your time today, guys. Have a crafty day.